here. All right. Enjoy MLB Moving Averages, his presentation. And remember, go to pitcherlist.com/PitchCon. Help support the cause. It's in the banner right below. Actually, let me just change that banner because I was really bad at doing that before. Here we go. But yeah, go to that website. Go to click the contribute button. Help the cause. We're raising money for Feeding America. We got to get to that $10,000 goal. I believe in this community. We can do it. We can make it happen. But in the meantime, enjoy MLB Moving Averages.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of Cork Stats here at PitchCon 2022 with your host, John Legeza at MLB Moving AVG on the Bluebird Twitter machine. That's the big dude with the big mouth from the Big Apple. Big Johnny Stud coming to you worldwide from Brooklyn, New York. As always, thank you so much to Nick Pollock, Alex Fast, all the wonderful people over at Pitcher List for putting on this event, for allowing me a platform for my very unique version of loud noises and baseball statistics, but also raising money for a good cause. Please, people, donate to Feeding America. We're not all so lucky in this life. You got to pay it forward. You really got to think about others in need. Enough of that. We need more of this. I'm going to give you something extra special today. I've been working round the clock. Remember, death, taxes, sun rising in the east, setting in the west, bears making dookie in the woods, and the big dude up before the crack of dawn every day to bring you the fastest show in MLB anywhere. We're going to be doing something extra special today, something I speak with analysts and players alike all the time. The crossover between fantasy and betting as we get new advanced stats into space, how to apply them to what really matters at the end of the day, even more so than having fun. And it's getting paid, because you got to keep the lights on, got to keep the kids fed. I know for myself, man, I do this for a living, and it's very important I stay really sharp. We're going to talk about charts and how to use them, perspective, differing points of view, trends. We're going to do Arsenal dissection. We're going to break down fastball shape. I mean, all of it. I have my own triple slash for individual pitches I'm going to introduce, and some lefty-righty approaches as we break down pitchers at the highest level. So we're going to try to achieve a few different things here today, all at once, of course. If person A is going to do, then Big John is going to try and overdo. So in our attempt to break down pitch shape and all the advanced stuff I was talking about, we will try and apply it to the top of the fantasy draft board. We're going to look specifically at Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, and Zach Wheeler. And I think there's a few points that we're going to get out of this. It's human nature. It's very easy to just say, well, all these guys are very good and there's no difference. We don't really know the future or what's going to go on. And anyway, we're flying on a spinning rock through the universe. But if you take that attitude, you're going to find yourself with regrets. Whenever I make expensive decisions, I like to validate the work. We want to be proactive and not reactive. And again, this kind of advanced deep dive is not always going to get you to the right answer, but the big shaking but and all important but is that it will help you keep your head up high with the decision that you made. And that's what this life is all about. Do your work, you validate it, and then stick to your convictions. Fortitude is really important. And then once the results come out, we can go and back test the process. I've been using this myself for a couple years in fantasy and the handicapping space with some pretty excellent results. And I know analysts and players alike kind of come at me with these questions. So we're going to do a bit of that. We're going to do some deep dives, and we're going to try and parse through the very top of the draft board. We're going to bust out the electron microscope, and during this process, I'm going to help you see how to use this for all pitchers, whether it's DFS, whether it's fantasy, whether it's betting. The market is very sharp. We're in the age of ubiquitous information. You got to be on the tip of that spear. So without any further ado, let's just dive right on in. The first pitcher we'll be talking about today is Walker Buehler. Check out the snazzy graphics brought to you by yours truly. You see the surface stats that were the fantasy-related ones, at least, all in check for 2021 from Walker Buehler. And this is where people get in trouble. Look at the results. That's good enough to warrant a first-round pick. You gotta pump the brakes. Input stats, greater than sign, output stats. Results are good, but we want the input because we are forward-looking. Now, people often throw around the word predictive. I'm very careful with that. I just like to see what's coming in, and that will help me predict what's going out. Remember, when you roll with me, you're getting context, you're getting nuance, but I'm also going to try and do it in layman's terms so everyone can understand. I know I'm appealing to high-stakes players, but also to some 101 novices out there that really want to sharpen your game. Let's do it. Walker Buehler was excellent last year. Like I said, you see the surface stats, the ERA backed up by some pretty strong earned run indicators, 3.57 xFIP, 2.47 deserved ERA. He had a 5.83 OPS allowed. Buehler was excellent, but we're going to pump the brake real quick when we're doing our analysis. One of the other ways to keep yourself in check from chasing output stats is to divvy players and teams, if we're betting, into compartmentalized baskets. This will keep any one stat from tipping the scale. We want to look at earn run indicators, discipline, elevation, and batted ball quality. Buehler was really good everywhere except maybe the K metrics when we're talking about a first round pick. A 26% K to 6% walk, leaving you 19.6 K minus walk is pretty good. But on the lower end of that scale at the top of the board, 13% swinging strike is good, but again, not great. 33% chase rate, again, good, but not great. The batted ball quality was excellent allowed. But let's dive in a little bit more. And the first place we always want to start is with the fastball. Don't be overwhelmed by the charts. We're going to lay it out and show you exactly what's going on. The three things that we look at when breaking down a fastball in particular. We're going to look at velo, we want to look at spin rate, and we want to look at break. That's the shape, both vertical and horizontal. None of these things are enough to overreact to. We see people overreacting to velo, we see overreacting to shape and to break. We're not here to do that. We want to build a tapestry, the widest kind of picture that we can, so we're not, again, being reactive to a stat. We're being proactive because we painted this picture. Doesn't take a real technical analysis wizard to see the velo that your very top left is down year over year. However, I have the velo gain per game last year as well. So though the velo is down year over year, you want to throw away that 2017 because of the extremely small sample. Buehler did start out a bit slow with velo. It did pick up, but we saw a drop. Let's move on over to the spin rate year over year. It was increasing until last year with the crackdown. Now, again, we're not here to blame anybody. We're not here to cast guilt or exonerate anyone. That's not our skills. Our job, I should say. We are analysts, and this is an objective data point. We have to look at it and then go from there. We don't want to make conclusions before we're ready, but we do have to look at the points. So up top, you have the year over year. Down below is the spin rate by game, and you could see at the crackdown directly a precipitous drop in spin across the board for Buehler. So it is not enough to overreact, but you have to keep that in mind. And then when you see that spin rate never recovered, let's go over to the break. And shape has been a bit of an issue for Buehler. Look up top, you have your vertical. Down below, you have your horizontal. Now here, let's stop and do the lesson really quick just so you understand what I'm talking about. The thing we're looking for when speaking about shape is less vertical break. This is referred to as a rising fastball. No fastballs actually rise against gravity. That would be impossible. But we want the least amount of drop as possible, and that gives the rising effect. And as far as horizontal, you want the most possible because we want it to tail. So look at Buehler's trend in vertical break. It is down, but this is one of the lessons I wanted to speak to as far as chart reading. You can't just look and say, oh, a downward trend is bad. We have to put it in perspective. We always want to be zooming in and zooming out, keeping our eye on the battlefield, but also coming up to that 35,000-foot view. So though the vertical break for Buehler is somewhat moving in the wrong direction, 12 inches is phenomenal. There's no problem with the vert break there. Ignore the trend. See how we need to not overreact. Nuance and context is the name of the game. The problem here is that vertical movement. Yes, we've seen it revert, but right off the bat, this is like 50% lower than the average across the board. You could see the single digits there. It began at 6, worked its way down to 2. The reason I'm getting at that is that, let's call it step back in shape, right? Even though it has flattened, it has lost its tail. and losing its tail has left the ball in the center. There's the charts that you're seeing there. The four-seam location for Walker Buehler on the left and the home run location on the right. It's been a major problem for Buehler, that fastball, and I kind of showed you why. It's trending in the wrong direction. The velo is down. The spin is down. The break is moving in the wrong direction, and that has resulted in home runs. So it's very easy for people, again, low fruit analysis, to just regress home runs, to regress fly balls. If you're going to center fastballs where Buehler is, those are going in the seats. Now, I really have kind of an issue with the four-seamer here, and that is normally my first red flag, but I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The off-speed stuff is ridiculous. You know, the slider, 34% whiff. The curveball, 35% whiff. The changeup, 33% whiff. The off-speed stuff is awesome, and again, just because I'm knocking the fastball doesn't mean Buehler should be off your draft list. We have the microscope out for a reason. We're here to parse through the details and then make our decision at the end. So for those people going Walker Buehler SP1 overall, I've got some questions. What's the very next thing we want to do if we're trying to project is go to the smartest people in the projection game. That would be Steamer. Now they have Buehler for a full complement of games at 32, 198 innings, but look at that ERA at 4.11, but look at that whip at 1.24, even with the strikeouts. I think I have a problem with the strikeouts there, that K rate moving in the wrong direction, and unless we see a correction of the shape of the fastball, I am not expecting the K rate to stick where it was earlier in the career and then even earlier in the season. And I think for those people that see the +4 ERA projections and wondering why, I hope I did a good job of laying out why that is. So let's keep all that stuff in mind for Walker Buehler, that there are some red flags in the game. The contact is awesome. The wins should be there. The Dodgers score runs. But if we're talking about portending the future, the input stats not as strong as we'd like for the four-seamer. So there we go, everyone. Just a small bit of what we're going to do with each pitcher as we walk through this. And again, please don't be offended if you love Walker Buehler. I do think the man is excellent, but I'm just giving you a reason for my concern. So we have a little bit of chart reading and perspective with POV, plus an understanding of pitch shape. Remember, we want a pitch to be flat. That's something that has actually changed in our perspective, right? Think back to when you were little, you'd hear a fastball is straight as an arrow, and that's why it gets hit. In fact, a fastball straight as an arrow would be excellent because it doesn't sink into the middle of a plate. Besides the fact there is an extra deceptive element added when your pitch shape is dissimilar from the rest of the field. So there's a little bit about how we understand fastballs and the ball in flight. I got to stop real quick. Hat tip, and this is like a little circular thing, right? Life going round and round. Hat tip to Barton Smith. He was on PitchCon last year and began to spark my interest in this. So hat tip to you, Barton. I got to have you back on the show. And if anyone is interested in some more of the stuff I'm talking about, I had Barton on my Cork Stats podcast. You could search that and check it. I think a lot of the information, even though it's from last year, is still kind of evergreen. Let's dive into our next pitcher here, and it's Mad Max Scherzer. Old Blue Eye, the chairman of the board. You see the surface stats up there. It was looking really good. Not sure that you could repeat that, or can you? That's our job, to see if we can. Scherzer last year was phenomenal. A lot of stuff kind of mirrored Walker Buehler, what you'd expect at the top of the board. You see the ERA, you see the whip, all the earned run indicators are firmly in place. Sierra, FIP, deserved ERA, all below 3 is absolutely excellent. Scherzer pitched to a 570 OPS. And as I mentioned, the Buehler disciplinary basket, Scherzer's is a little bit better. 34% K, a 16% swinging strike with a 34% whiff, and a 78% in-zone contact rate. You know, Scherzer could make you chase. He could beat you in, or he can beat you out. A lot of fly balls, but that's been okay because of the double-digit infield fly. We know the hard hit rates for Scherzer are really low. He suppresses contact to the tune of a 364 expected wOBA on contact. So as we go through our baskets, Max Scherzer looking really strong, but that's a kind of analysis that we're trying to avoid. Enough of that. Let's get into more of this. Back to the fastball dissection. The top left corner. Again, people, I think it's really important not only to be objective, but to try and be as standardized as possible. And that's why you see the same layout. Not to say a template is paramount, that you need such a rigid template to compare different pitchers or players, but it is important to make sure that you turn over every stone and that you're being fair. Because even though I use all these stats and charts and data, I, like everyone else, have biases, and it's really important to try and defeat them. So let's get back into the fastball dissection for Max Scherzer, and it's going to be the same as it was for Buehler. We're going to look at velo, we're going to look at spin rate, and we're going to look at shape, and with that is going to be a lesson or two about reading charts. The top left for Max Scherzer is your year-over-year fastball velo, and it looks erratic. You see up and down, peaks and valleys, but keep an eye on the total. The top out is 95. The bottom out is 93 3/4. That is noise. That is not a signal. Some people see charts and automatically assume from the trend that that's the direction. I have experience in technical analysis from Wall Street, and there is something to be said from that. Chart reading is as much an art as a science, and if you ask me about the velo for Max Scherzer year over year, to me, that's a rectangular pattern, and it is just fine. You bump down to the bottom where we have the game over game velo, and there you have the validation of the assertion that I just made. The velo started low and got back up and sustained throughout basically the entire year at 94.5 or above, and if you were to plot that on the chart up top, that is fine. So velo gets a green check for Max regardless of what the check looks like. We're going to do a little bit more POV, a little bit more perspective, a little bit more technical analysis here as we get into the middle chart, and that's your spin rate. It's an undeniable year-over-year drop in spin rate, right? I mean, it's undeniable. However, look at the totals. Topping out at 25.40, bottom out at 24.40. You cannot overreact to 100 RPMs. I generally don't even look at RPMs unless we're talking about a difference of 250 or 300. And then when you go down to the bottom chart, the one that's all important when we apply the crackdown data point, we did see a precipitous drop in spin rate from Scherzer. However, unlike Buehler, his recovered. Now, I don't know the answer to why, but I am not overreacting to recovered spin rates. That's just me. My expectation is if he recovered through a half season on the fly, it will be fine going forward. And the last one, when we get to the break, is especially interesting. Again, remember, we're looking at the chart, but then looking at the totals, zooming in, zooming out, battlefield, blimp view. Always their head is on a swivel, trying not to lose perspective of the topic at hand. So let's look at the vertical break first. Remember, we want a reduced vertical break. So we want that line near the top. We saw it drop, then we saw it rise in the last few years. Not sure I'm ready to react to anything happening before 2013. What does matter here is if you compare it to the horizontal break right below, I overlaid those charts to the best of my ability so the time frames are equal. Look at the coordinated movement. This tells me Max was fine-tuning his pitch shape, and it really makes sense. As we saw the break increase, which is bad, we saw the horizontal break increase, which is good. But then we see the fine-tuning in 2017, 2018, 2019. Remember, vertical break, we want less. We want to be at 15 or below. Max's horizontal break is absurdly good. He's got to be in the top. I checked it earlier. I think the top 5 or top 8 overall, and that's why he's able to maintain that 30% whiff rate. Remember, X and Y movement, Max really does it both. In particular, the last couple of years when he was able to flatten the attack angle of the fastball down to 15 where he wants to be, while also maintaining the double-digit horizontal break when in accordance, in combination. That's what's carrying that whiff rate. So we got to give Max the green check mark on the fastball. So once you get the green check on the fastball, then I want to move forward, and his splits are just ridiculous. I mean, lefty, righty, home and away, a top WOBA split of 264, all sub 600 OPSs. Max really doing the thing, but we're going to get into what I mentioned at the outset, which is a targeted approach. And what I mean about a targeted approach is when a pitcher has a certain attack plan for lefties and righties, and how that affects the pitch mix, because people see, oh, there's only 5% thrown, 8% thrown. This is a secondary, this is a tertiary, or you hear them say pitch mixes were changing erratically game to game. If a pitcher has a targeted approach for lefties and righties, it's going to do that depending on the handedness of the hitter. So let's get back into these splits and the attack plan. Max always working down and away to righties, working all four corners to lefties. When I mentioned the targeted approach, 96% of Max's sliders go to righties, 96% of his cutters go to lefties. That is not an accident, 3/4 of the curve, but we'll get to the curve in a second. I mean, the speed changes there. It is really an excellent, not only arsenal, but deployment of it. Let's get a little bit further in when we look at righties. Max busted him low and away with all 3 of the 4 pitches he uses, except the same hand side changeup. Nick Pollock, I know you love that pitch. He's been using it to work that Y-axis left and right. And again, I wanted to stop just for a second because I did mention using my own triple slash. Now, this is a bit oversimplified, but it will help at least shine a light where we need further investigation. I tend to think of individual pitches in terms of usage, X slug and whiff, right? We want deployment, we want contact quality, and swing and miss. Max gets a ton of that across the board. That changeup, 10% use, 193 X-Lug, 33% whiff. The curveball, 5 use, 304 X-Lug, 36% whiff, with a 20-mile-an-hour difference. There is no surprise he dominates righties. Over to the left-hand side, look at the way he works the corners. Max goes with the changeup down, the curveball away, the fastball up, and the cutter in. Changing speeds, changing eye levels, and we mentioned the quality fastball. You know, it's really important, even more so, to have a diverse arsenal in case a pitcher shows up, doesn't have a certain pitch or even 2, that they can rely on the other offering. That is key. That is clutch and a running theme that you see with pitchers that are really successful. So Max really without a hiccup in this game, but I did want to stop and spin a quick bowl. And people, if I'm following my work a bit, may know, but what do I mean when I say I'm going to stop to spin a bowl? I think back either all the way to the Ed Sullivan Show, or maybe if you're a bit younger, to the Gong Show. The gentleman's name was Eric Brandon. He'd be spinning bowls on sticks, dun, 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 the circus music is playing, this guy's spinning 2, then it's 4, then it's 8, then it's 10, then 12 bowls on sticks as he's moving around. Da, da, da. What are you talking about, Johnny? And I'm going to tell you what, it is my favorite analogy for complex thought. Every bowl is a thought. You could spin as many as you'd like, providing you get back to the beginning before the topic is irrelevant. So I laid out spin rate and how it affected Walker Buehler's fastball. The shape, the same. Then we moved over, to Scherzer. His fastball, velocity, spin, and shape. And now we're going to look at how those smaller trends worked within the larger trend. So up top, you have Walker Buehler, left to right is XBA swing and miss. The same for Scherzer as the bottom 2 charts. We mentioned Buehler's fastball quality erode. We see the XBA rise. But again, we're zooming out to look at the totals. Look at the totals. It's topping out near 290. That is terrible. You cannot ignore where the fastball left off last year. And then if you move over to the right, you see the subsequent drop in swing and miss. To me, there is an obvious and clear issue with the fastball. For Walker Buehler, does not mean it can't be corrected, but I also refuse to ignore it. Drop down to Max Scherzer's. Look where his XBA chart tops out, right? Again, you could say, look at what's trending up. More context, more nuance, more perspective. Just gimme all of it. Scherzer's XBA topping out at 240. Ignore that trend. Look at the range and then move over to the subsequent change in swing and miss. the undeniable move up as we've passed 25 the last 4 years. I mean, if we're talking fastballs, we should be talking Max Scherzer and not Walker Buehler. So there, I just wanted to give, as we kind of take a chunk of info here, then we take a chunk of info there, I like to stop and spin the bowl, go back to the beginning, and show how we can apply it. And again, just how the smaller term trends can work within the other ones. Again, when we're looking forward, where do we go? To the smart people that do steamer projections. Man, check out this snazzy graphic that I made, man. I might have a future in this at some point. What do we got? We got ace metrics across the board. The one thing that we do have to circle is the projection of only 28 games. The reason I say only 28 games is because pitchers that we're drafting in the first or second round, we really want projected for 30 or 32, and we need to ask the reason why, and it's because we know Max has missed bits here and there. Nothing has been too detrimental as of late, but keep that in mind. As far as the numbers go, I am with it all the way. Wins are incredibly hard to predict. Max is a candidate for 20 wins as much as anyone. I don't want to hear it. He legitimately is. I think the ERA is a bit high, but, projection systems are always going to be a bit conservative. But with the increased quality in fastball plus the targeted approach, man, I don't see any reason why Scherzer is not a candidate, again, to be below the 3 ERA. If anyone could do it, it's him. I don't actually try making a point to project these things. So I guess the 3.4 ERA is okay, but I think if he hangs a 105 whip with a 241 total Ks, I don't think the ERA is going to be at 340, and I don't think the wins will be at 13. So you have to always just keep those things, you take it, not say with a grain of salt, because I do highly respect the work at Steamer, but, you just don't want to overreact to it. That's why, again, input stats greater than sign, output stats. I love the input stats. The output stats will come. So there's just a bit of the first two pitchers. I know it's a lot. I know we're moving fast. We got a lot more to do as we get into the third pitcher. But again, it's always good to just stop for a second, especially at the speed that I move and talk, right? To think about where we've been. So we walk through Buehler. We know the production is there. We know the contact is good. But the fastball has struggled as good as the off-speed stuff is. So it should be enough to carry him. But 45% use on that fastball. Talk about a primary pitch. It should be performing better than that, or I would suggest pulling back on the usage. Over to Max, he passes all scrutiny. All scrutiny to Max. The only small question is the health. Keep that in mind. Let's move over into our third subject today, and it's Zach Wheeler. Look at the numbers. He was absolutely phenomenal last year. But our job is not to read last year's stats. It's to determine if we think he can do it this year. Let's just take a quick look at last year across those baskets that I mentioned. We know the output stats were good. You see them up there. All the earn run indicators extremely strong. FIP, XFIP, deserved ERA, and PCRA all below 3. Pitched to a 585 OPS, a 24% K- walk, 12.5% swinging strike rate. So there, the swing strike rate, not necessarily there to carry the 29% K, but I think we're going to get to that a bit more because of the chase rate, because of the called strikes, because of the extremely high first strike rate. I do think it's in the cards again for Wheeler, meaning I really don't think it was an anomaly. That's discipline. You go into elevation, 50% ground ball rate, 27% fly ball with a 13% infield fly. What else could you ask for? Elevation basket is a check. Batted ball quality, double check. 28.5% and 29% hard hit rate across the two major accounting sites. That is Fangraphs and StatCast. Let's learn one more thing, people. Not all hard hit rates are created equal. Hard hit rate on Fangraphs uses baseball information solutions. There is a subjective human element to that. StatCast uses a raw 95 mile an hour metric. People often ask me which is better. The answer is both, because again, never too much context, never too much nuance. That would be impossible. So we see the surface stats. Wheeler was really good across the board. Let's dive back into our template and get into fastball dissection. What are we looking at? Velo, spin, and break. The template, the process. Again, being objective, turning over every stone, making sure we are thorough. Let's get into the velo. Whoa, look at the velo pop from Wheeler. We are up over 2 miles an hour in the past 5 years, a year over year increase. And then when you dump down to the game-by-game breakdown, he was very consistent. Remember, rectangular patterns are a thing. Growth and production are never linear. Think of a stock chart. Even a stock chart that seemingly goes up all the time, the more you zoom in, the more dips you'll see. There's your lesson about perspective. Let's get into spin rate. Again, a year over year increase. And more importantly, when we look at the bottom, no distinct drop-off at the crackdown. That is something I'm looking for as well, which I should really intuitively lend itself to thinking will be no change next year. Over to the break. Here is where Wheeler has separated himself from the pack. Look at the change in vert break from 2020 to 2021. He has reduced 2 inches of drop off the fastball, flattening that into rising area while combining it with the horizontal break. Really effective pitch for Wheeler. His fastball is trending in the right direction. Wheeler's was trending in the wrong direction. Max had a hiccup at the crackdown and recovered. Though he fine-tuned his shape, Wheeler's fastball is moving in the right direction across the board. Again, holding up to all scrutiny. So now we did our third pitcher, and I want to stop and spin one more quick bowl as I mentioned those trends, how the reaction to the crackdown manifested, and how we want to react to that. So on the left is Walker Buehler. There are your spin rates, 100 pitch rolling. Again, precipitous drop at the crackdown across the arsenal without recovery. No opinion, no assertion, just the fact. To the middle, Max Scherzer, precipitous drop at the crackdown with recovery. Zach Wheeler, no drop at the crackdown, maintain the spin rate. Just keep the trends in mind. Stop reading the box score to look for the future. That's not where it's going to be. If you ask me, it's in these stats. It's in the progression and the trends here. Now let's get into Wheeler's targeted approach. It's really a bit more textbook, I would say. He just works the low corners. I've even dubbed this the 3 low corners of the strike zone. People often ask me, how could there be 3 low corners when a rectangle only has 2 low corners? I generally think of the attack point at center black as a third corner. So I generally think of low and away, low and inside, and then center drop off the table. You see that visualized pretty well with the curveball. So when going after righties, Wheeler is going away with the slider. He goes in with the sinker, then off the table with the curve. And you could see, just check my triple slashes, right? If you want to check a triple slash, we're looking for X-lug. We're looking for whiff rate. Let's check out the slider. 34% whiff rate. I mean, that is excellent. Even to a 417 slug, you can get away with that. The changeup, which he doesn't use often, but he does use it heavily as a put-away pitch. So again, there's a bit of perspective with people talking about, oh, well, I don't really analyze the pitch because it's a throwaway. The changeup is not a throwaway to righties. When he uses it, it's really effective. So Wheeler really focusing on the lower black. His command is excellent, and when he misses, it's outside of the zone. He's been great against righties. Over to lefties, he uses the slider in, the curveball down, to change away. And again, there's that diversity. He has different pitches that excel. He doesn't need them every single day. But what does maintain? The triple slash, the slider, 312 X-lug, 28 whiff, the curveball. I mean, I almost had to rub my eyes at this one. 204 X-lug, 37% whiff rate. Money pitches all around. He's beating hitters in. He's beating them out. And he has separate attack plans for hitters on both sides of the plate. I mean, there is just not a chink in the armor for Wheeler. I am having trouble getting away from him. Up there with almost anybody aside from like Cole and Burns. Do the projection systems agree? Steamer has Wheeler for a full complement at 32 games and over 200 innings, over 200 Ks. There's that unlucky 13 wins again. I wonder if they're reticent of going any higher than that. I know I'm not. Wheeler, again, is a he is a perfect candidate to go for 20 wins with the distance he gives you on a per game basis and the efficiency and the command. Plus, he's added the strikeout. So I'm not buying any of these win projections. Not to mention, Philly did add Corey Knebel into the bullpen. Their bullpen was really bad last year. Sometimes just adding a good arm to the back end could shorten those games and bump the win rate. There's another one. I'm not really feeling ERA projections. I'm probably not feeling them just in general. Because, again, if you give me 32 games with a 117 whip and 209 Ks, I have a hard time thinking his ERA is going to come in at 363, in particular with the way we've seen him limit contact because of his efficacy around the edges. So there is a look at a very, very high-paced look at how we can break down pitchers at the highest levels. Not all of these pitchers are created equal, even if their results seem to be. And I wanted that to be at the overarching, theme of this presentation. That I keep hammering it home: input stats greater than output stats. Because if you look at the output stats, I should say, you could make it a perfectly, cromulent argument for Buehler having the best year, and that being the reason to take him first. However, I would have to pump the brakes on that, because I think as we took out the electron microscope and showed you this objective dissection, right? We didn't pinpoint, it was not ad hominem, we didn't go after the person at all, there were no subjective narratives. We created a template, we explained and validated how and why it works, and applied it fairly and evenly across these three pitchers. And if I didn't know about ADP, if ADP wasn't a thing, I didn't understand it, was not aware of it, or didn't have access to it, personally, I would have Zach Wheeler first of the bunch here. So if that's the bold clean people were looking for, Big Johnny has Zach Wheeler. I think I'm going to go, I got my SP3 overall. Now, granted, Max also held up to the scrutiny that Wheeler did, but because of my worry about the total games with the age and the missing games, more recently, right? Wheeler has had issues, but once you give me a couple full seasons, I don't know how to predict injuries. So if you give me a couple full seasons, you're not injured. You're healthy now. Max, I think, is healthy now, but I don't think it's that far of a stretch. I think he's the better bet to miss games started of the group. But I like the fastball and the approach from Max more than I like Buehler. I'm going to have no shares of Buehler. And it's not because I think he's bad at all. I worry about the fastball, which I showed you the subsequent effect on the swinging strike rate it's had. Opposed to Scherzer, who has one of the highest whiff rates with one of the best movement profiles in the league, and Wheeler, who is getting to one of those elite movement profiles with the accelerated velocity. I want to be on the right side of the trends. That is a kind of famous adage on Wall Street. The trend is our friend. And I'm going to stick with that, right? I'm going to ignore the output stats because of the trends that we saw. I'm putting Wheeler ahead of Buehler and ahead of Max. I'm slotting Max ahead of Buehler. So for this exercise today, I think that'll do it as far as the ranking process. And I hope I validated not just how I got there, but I also hope I cracked the door open and let a little light in on how you can go about this and how you can make these own determinations on your own. I picked 3 of the best pitchers in the game. They're kind of fun to break down, but I was also hoping that I'd be able to appeal to people in 10 or 12 team leagues. And then for the more advanced players in 15 team leagues, you could run these same kind of templates on pitchers that you're interested in. Don't be shy. Look at the fastball trends. Look at the velocity. Look at the spin. Look at the swing and miss. Understand what's happening with the ball in flight as these new stats come out and people much smarter than me, like Professor Barton, are explaining them to us. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I didn't wake up, knowing this stuff. I've been in the DMs of people smarter than me trying to find out about it. So I think there's a few takeaways here, everybody, right? Not just I showed you a template and how to apply it, but I showed you charts and how to read them. Remember, not just the trend. Don't overreact to the direction. always zoom out and check out the totals. And that goes for Buehler, especially, where some of the charts look negative for him, but in the grand scheme, they weren't. Other ones didn't look bad, but in the grand scheme, they are. I'm referring to that horizontal movement for Buehler, who, if he doesn't add any tail with the poor vert break, he's not going to recover the swinging strike on that pitch, especially if he's throwing it 45% of the time. So I hope you got a bit of granular information specific to these players that maybe you can use in your own draft rooms. But also I hope I left you with a feather in the cap, with a tool in the tool bag that will make you a better and sharper player going forward. So that'll do it for my PitchCon 2022 presentation here on this very special edition of Cork Stats. Thank you so much, everybody, for picking up what I'm putting down. Giant hat tip to Nick Pollock, Alex Fast, everyone at Pitcher List, the wonderful work they do regarding baseball and even outside. They're a gold standard in the community. The community built around it is not only informed, but it's inclusive. It's a lot of fun. Man, I've been in the chat rooms of PitchCon all weekend, really having such a great time. So everybody, make sure that you donate to Feeding America. Get up in the comments. Follow me on Twitter at MLB Moving Averages, at MLB Moving AVG. Check out the Cork Stats YouTube channel. Check out Cork Stats on the Mayo Media Network. Get up over there, rate, review, subscribe. Get up in the comments and let me know how good of a job I'm doing. So I think that'll do it from the big dude with the big mouth, from the Big Apple. And remember, everybody, when you work this hard, it feels a lot less like luck. Looking forward to your Q&A. Anyone that stuck around, I love this stuff, and I really hope that I help to teach a thing or two about the process. Man, I see you right now. I see you in the chat room, everybody. All right.
That was so awesome. Yeah. Oh, that was so great, John. That was great. Thank you so much, everybody, for the comments and everything through. I love seeing you comment on your own presentation inside of Twitch. That's cracking me up, man. I got to ask you one quick thing.
Yeah.
How you dealing with the snow right now? Have you been able to shovel at all?
Well, I actually took the kiddies outside, and my 6-year-old plunked me in the face with a frozen snowball. So yeah, I got my taste of it. Yeah, it was actually worked out pretty good. You know, I recorded this morning, and then I took them outside, and we were playing and stuff. And you spend more time digging ice out of the kids' sleeves than anything, but I guess
that sounds right.
It's kind of that sounds about right. That's pretty much it. But it's fun, man. Nick, thank you so much for having me. I've been enjoying this weekend. There's been so much fun, so much great stuff, man. It's almost very hard to kind of digest it all. There's so much of it.
Right? It's been great. Insane how much talent has been here. How many fun panels? How many informative panels? Yeah. How much I need to go back and be taking notes and be like, you know what? I wrote my ranks, but maybe I might change them a little bit now. I gotta figure this out.
Oh, did I compel you? I mean, man, if I could compel you,
I'm gonna be asking some questions right now.
Yeah, let's go.
First one is, where's Brandon Woodruff in this conversation?
Oh, he is right there. And if I either had another 15 minutes or I could somehow speak a little bit faster, I would have loved to put him in there. Brandon Woodruff he's a legitimate ace, Nick, as well. And I think he's another one of the players, along with Zach Wheeler, that really gives me a pretty solid feeling about taking a hitter in the first round. I've never been a double pitcher guy. I've never been a pocket ace guy, because probably like yourself, if you feel confident that you could find those stats later on, and I always have. I've always been pretty good at it. My hiccup has always been batting average and steals, the specialty stuff. But right now, man, I feel great about a hitter in the first round, because there are legit aces in the second round. I truly feel that if you have Woodruff or Wheeler, you have a very good chance at the NL Cy Young.
Absolutely. And so are you putting Woodruff? I mean, it sounded like you were saying, Zach Wheeler at 3 is where you
I'm going to have to comp Woodruff in there. Man, I maybe I didn't let on as much as the worries of max and longevity. They do bother me, because
they bother me too, John.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it doesn't sound like a lot when you say, Steamer only has 28 opposed to 32. Well, that 4 from 32 is better than 10% of misses. Yeah. And we all know the nature of pitching injuries, and something we learned over the past is, once guys get hurt, it's very hard for them to recoup, right? They have to rehab, they have to throw, maybe a program, depending on the distance, the time, maybe a AAA start. And before you know it, you've lost the 4 starts, might be 6, and it can be difficult. So because I am such a cheapskate, that the draft capital and the only 28 starts has pushed me away from Max. But part of me says I can't predict injuries, and this is only a 1-year contract. He holds up to all scrutiny. He is phenomenal, and he's getting better. Like, the fine tuning of the fastball was really something that I wanted to put out there, because with the advancements in mechanics, right, biomechanics and driveline, Nick, this is what is going on with the better organizations. These pitches are happening under the microscope, and we now know what's better. So you could measure, grips, and you have a high IQ pitcher or a very cerebral guy like Max. So if he gives us 32 starts, Max is probably the Cy Young.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw last year. It was a weird debate. I mean, Buehler, Wheeler, Burns, and Scherzer all had kind of, to me, Buehler was the Cy Young and wasn't even a finalist. But that's because of me and my feelings of innings pitched is super important.
Yeah. Well, those stats were there, man. What is it?
Expected stats I don't care about when it comes to the Cy Young award at all.
No. Nick, I tend to, because I am, right, you think I'm overly analytical, and I tend to side with you on that Hall of Fame debate.
Right, it's just because it's that award. It's not about how we normally do analysis stuff. Like, that award is about, like, what you do on the field. But whatever. That's all that aside. I'm agreeing with you a lot about Scherzer just because of the I am still worried that the fastball, I mean, look, the location of the fastball was a worry for me. I mean, you even put up the heat maps for it. And it's very centered,
Yeah, but he gets such good movement.
Yeah, it allows for home runs a lot is the problem.
Yeah.
That was the issue in 2020. I mean, it was better, of course, last year, but there's still a feeling that Scherzer's fastball is going to maybe be the problem while the slider is still so good.
Oh, my gosh, You almost wonder why, and you track this more than me, you tend to wonder why don't pitchers throw that 45% of the time?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I think part of it is it's strike percentage. If you're not getting enough strikes you got
to be able to throw strikes.
You have to be able to throw a strike, all that kind of stuff. But even there's a difference between like a 61% strike rate and like a 67. That really does change the counts quicker, and you get mentalities of this. You're not thinking about, I have a 67% chance of getting a strike in this. It's more of the feel that pitchers go through is represented in that 6-point gap, right?
They get up and get ahead,
Yeah, so there's a lot of theories about that stuff, but some guys do. I mean, we saw Dylan Lamet do that. It's like, my slider is that good. Oscar Noah was doing that. This is the stuff that changes. Like, Lance McCullers as well. It's like, sure, I'll throw breaking balls.
Can you tell what my obvious question for you is are you worried about where do you stand on the Buehler fastball? Because I'm admitting, right, there are parts of the argument with the spin that we're not certain of how it's going to recover.
Affected him.
But it's velo also. It's velo, it's spin, it's movement.
Absolutely. There is a wonder if all that stuff kind of affected him the same way. Like, for example, how Tyler was saying, like, I need to grip it differently and all of a sudden changing stuff. And that could have brought down the velocity. I'm willing to kind of say with Buehler that I don't believe that long-term his four-seamer is a sub-9% swing strike rate pitch.
Right.
I think it just is better than that.
So you have like a 25 whiff? You're like a 25-26 whiff? Because at 20, if he's going to be at 20-21, throwing it 45% of the time, he's going to struggle.
Long-term is of Buehler.
Okay.
I think he's better than that. And no, I think he's going to return back to 10% plus swing strike rates on those four-seamers. So I actually am in favor, I think, more than the general crowd right now of Buehler, because there's an assumption that this young pitcher is going to, having this kind of weird second half is now all of a sudden always going to have it. And I think a guy like his talent is not going to just be that all of a sudden. It's not going to keep trending down.
What's going to serve to confuse me? If he's at 96.5 in spring training, because all of the issues we've seen have only occurred with reduced velocity, something especially once we're at that 95, 96 makes a difference. That tick matters. And I don't think, with all things being said, if he's living at 95 or below, he's going to survive there. And we've also seen pitchers start low and build up. So, but if he starts up there, throwing 96, 97, I'm going to be worried that I'm wrong. Very wrong.
Absolutely. And a very interesting point here, TPH Noob, which I love the name, is saying that the velocity was down from day one from Walker Buehler. It was a 95.4 overall in the season, so at least the 94.7 what it was through the entire year, to be fair there.
Yeah. No,
And
and
the
also
next
Nick,
start was
that
already up to 95.5.
yeah, I
So
pointed that out.
I'm not too worried about that. It was down maybe in a little beginning, but
Yeah.
it just seems to me that this isn't what it will be forever for Buehler.
Okay.
And considering the situation, considering even with that, yeah, I'm sure that he got lucky with a 2.5 ERA and .97 WHIP, but it's kind of like, well, he did that and was, we're thinking he should be a little bit better, and he still had this absurdly beneficial season for you. It just to me
Arsenal's
is a little
very good.
safer. Like, you're not going to have Buehler, and you're not going to see like a 3.6 ERA with a 120 WHIP or 115 WHIP or something like that, and a 24% K rate. You're not going to see that, and to me, that's the worry of Scherzer's health to me is the deal breaker.
Yeah,
like the tiebreaker there for me.
even in
Now,
a redraft league, Nick. So like you,
yeah,
because we only need 32 starts, right? That's all we need. We don't know. None of us know if he's going to get hurt in the second, the 32nd, or the 400th.
yeah,
We just
right,
don't know.
Right.
So I worry sometimes that I get over my skis with the injury thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if all the smarter people than me have him for 10% less starts, we're paying top-notch capital for it. So it's easy to say, let someone else go.
I joke about this all the time. I'm not getting any of these guys because I'm probably not even going pitcher in the second round. But you did make a very good case of like,
Really?
don't do it in the first because you're going to get an ace in the second.
Yeah. But now let me ask you. Let's say you have a top pick.
My weakness is hitting in season.
Wow.
So I want to get that.
But you know so much about, man. Even I feel like as I learn more and more and progress more and more, follow work like your own, there still are only a smaller percentage of guys that can give you the 205, especially nowadays. You don't feel like you almost want one. You don't think you want like
volume.
Volume. Well, I know you're a volume guy.
I mean, DeGrom, I guess, too.
I know you're a volume guy.
Well, I think the especially in a 12-teamer, there is something to be said about innings per start. But generally with volume, it's the number of starts mostly. I mean, obviously there are guys, 6 to 7 frames as opposed to 5 to 6, and that's the main difference in that. And that does make a difference. I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm probably not going to have the number 1 pitching staff in my league.
Right.
But I want to try and have in the top 3 hitting of my league because of how I draft. And then I'm very confident I can be above average in my staff through the year, if not within the top 4 or 5, right? Like it's that's my mentality when going into this. And oftentimes, like, I'm not saying that for great example was last year I targeted Zach Wheeler and I targeted Alcantara. I got very lucky that both of them hit. But those were volume guys with that potential, at least, that we were saying, like, look, this could be much better.
Right.
And you still found that volume, right? And I think there are, guys, last year, 180 innings from Jim Musgrove. Yes, it's not 200 from Buehler, but that's enough of a gap that I feel like I can do better in my other pickups and my later picks to make up whatever that 20-inning gap is, right?
Yeah, I feel like this year is another perfect example, like you mentioned last time, with last year. You don't need to start a staff early on in the first 2 rounds. You certainly don't. And I think if you're apt at double plucking from that 5th, 6th, 7th round, where a lot of times
I might just go 7 through 11 only starters. That might be.
There's nothing wrong with that because that's when the market is going the other way. All the people that
starters are going.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Are not going to be, because you know what? I think they're more worried about selecting from, let's call it Montas, Snell, Fried, Manoa. You could live there. Oh, you could just you could totally eat there. Yeah, absolutely.
I will not replicate that, but that's exactly how I feel internally. Yes. And CJM Bucks has a good question, asking any worry about Dodgeritis, which, by the way, I've forgotten the phrase Dodgeritis. I hadn't said that for so long. Because it's just kind of nice that finally the Dodgers didn't have so much depth that Dodgeritis could exist. But any worry about that this year, considering that he went over 200, also considering the playoffs. The team missed a lot of innings last year, counting on Bryce. I'm just going to say that. Gonsolin and Kershaw last year when he hit 200. I'm not. I think that's Buehler just go off and start now. They need him to do this. They don't even have much depth. They're not going to want to rely on Andrew Heaney a ton. They're going to save their bullpen for those games and the Gonsolin games and the Price games. They only have 2 starters right now, really, in Urias and Buehler. And Buehler has showed that he can do this. They need him to do it. I'm not really concerned about that.
For you picked a name out that answers my question, and it's Julio Urias. He tacked on 135 innings from the
Yeah.
short season. And the reason I mention him is because we worried about him in the past getting dodgered when they had this max capacity.
Oh my God, it took for so long. He debuted in 2016.
Yeah, it took forever, right? And they gave us reason to worry, and they even had the May and Gonsolin kind of thing hanging over our heads. We were worried about
Dustin May. I was so wrong on him, and
No, he's excellent. Why were you wrong?
Because I didn't think his cutter was going to turn into the whiff pitch.
Oh, he's good.
The sinker
Yeah,
was too hittable, and then all of a sudden, like, it became the whiff pitch, and then it was so great to see him blossom, and he got taken too soon. Hey, maybe we'll see him at the end of the year. Maybe,
you think so? Maybe
next year we'll be talking about it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, maybe.
But John, I mean, this was fantastic.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Congrats on the new landing spot on the Pat Mayo show and the Matt.
Yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying it.
Company.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, the Mayo Media. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, I guess last thing here. Did you look at Alcantara at all?
Well, I'm still doing the victory lap because he was my top recommendation last season.
Right.
In the draft kit for my pick to return that first round value and to be the second rounder next year, and that was just like, and you know what? I've suffered from now. You know when you're right on a call like that and you worry chasing the continuation of price, right? Chasing that because now, like, I hit the value and now it's worth what I thought it would be worth, and I'm afraid to kind of pay. Sure. And now I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried that he maybe doesn't have that 28-29% K. I'm
taking Alcantara.
Oh, absolutely, every time,
all day.
Yeah, all day. But I've seen him go in the second and third, and I'm not ready.
I'm hearing. Well, like NFBC, I can understand definitely. 12 teamers, I can
the
imagine.
Volume, it's volume.
Third and stuff.
He's an IPS guy also.
Oh, absolutely. That's why Tim and Wheeler were like the two volume. I mean, he almost had 200 innings last year. Right. And the Marlins didn't have the the bad pen like Wheeler did. Yeah. So to push him like that, but anyway, thank you so much for your time, John. This was awesome. Glad we can make this work.
Yeah, that was excellent.
It was it's not easy scheduling this entire thing, and I'm so
I hope
glad
I wasn't
that
too
we
much
can
of a
make it
pain
work
in the
now.
butt. I know I'm not the easiest person.
No, dude. I'm not saying it was. I'm saying
I've been described as difficult.
I just threw you into this.
Yeah, I love it. That's how I roll.
Dude, that's how I roll.
I love it.
Okay, I was like, good. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, look, a blender where I'm the most comfortable. a blender on high. Great. You know what I mean? I'm right at home. I'm right home.
And by the way, CGM Rodon is not necessarily the answer because I would imagine they won't expect a lot of innings with him inside the Dodgers situation.
No,
if you're asking about that. But anyway, John, thanks so much for being here.
No, thank you, man. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Get me on Twitter. You can hit me up any time of day, any day of the week. I live for this. Nick, appreciate you. You're doing great work, man.
Be well. Thanks for being
part of PitchCon. Take care, man. Later.
Take care. All right. That was John, and